How to make a mixtape.
We can call this Cut for Time, or we
Cut
can
for
call
Time.
this
Or intro number 2.
intro number 2, or we can call this what's the thing at the end? The debrief, the
Debrief?
brief,
The pre-brief?
pre-brief.
Pre-brief. Yeah, listeners, our guest popped in with with a great microphone, but then
Beautiful.
a lot of background noise because where they are recording, there's apparently somebody's 40th birthday party. Whose 40th birthday party do you think it is, Donnie? What do you think
Did
the
you do
name
anything
is?
good for your 40th? Are you 40 yet?
I am 40.
Did you do anything
And
good for your 40th?
well, my trip to the UK, which happened months later, was kind of like a delayed 40th. So
Got it.
my actual 40th, no.
Nothing.
I think I went out with a few friends, but
So here's what's bananas, and tell me if this is generational. This is a big thing. I remember I would have been 11 when my dad turned 40, which is crazy to think about. Neither of you have children. Neither you or I have children. But I remember like an over the hill birthday party for my dad at 11 where there was like buzzards on things and like tombstones. And I remember turning 40 and being like, yep, it's business as usual.
Yeah.
And like is 40 the new 30? Is that a real fucking thing?
I do feel like the quote unquote over the hill birthday has slowly gone up over time because we're healthier and
younger.
Science
and shit, fucking years are too big, man. Time is too big.
Once again, time is too big.
Yeah, once again, time is too big.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I in my mind, it's somebody named Sharon's birthday.
Yeah, what does Sharon do for a living?
Well, he's at a co-working.
No,
place.
just spitball. Don't think about it too much. What does Sharon do for a living?
Don't think about it too much.
Yep.
Sharon is a freelance consultant, specifically to the restaurant industry.
Okay. What does she consult
on? Menus and like bar menus and food menus and stuff for restaurants.
Does she consult on the layout of the bar and food menu, or does she consult on? No.
No, just the actual menu because all the bars and restaurants. I take that back. There's a lot of really awesome bars and restaurants here, but too many of them are owned like big conglomerate like restaurant groups now.
Chili's.
Probably hire someone like Sharon to make their.
You think Sharon is that successful?
To pay for co-working space?
No, just to like. You think Sharon got it together enough?
There's a lot of that kind of stuff around.
Okay.
There's people that do that.
Yeah, you're right.
What do you think Sharon does?
Drives a city bus.
I mean,
packs her lunch.
Fair enough.
Packs her lunch.
Yeah.
Really gets excited for new seasons of The Bachelor.
Oh yeah, I could see that. Both of our Sharons do that.
Yeah, both Sharons are really into The Bachelor for sure. Yep, 2 kids.
She drives the
older
GRTC
kids
here in Richmond.
Yeah, she's got older kids. Both have graduated college. I used to spend hours of my time doing this with my friends. Like if we were out in a public setting, just making up stories about people, like what their entire life was. We used to do that shit doing it all the time
with couples that are obviously on an
early
date.
Yeah.
At a bar. We might have talked about this before. It's one of my favorite things. Like you can tell when they're on like a first, second, somewhere early in the relationship date.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite to just
early dates.
Observe, judge, comment on what they're probably talking about.
Make up the story. How nervous was he? Sure. How nervous was she?
Who asked who out?
Yep. What do they both do? Where do they work? How do they meet?
Yep. For sure.
Yeah. Great call.
It's a good one. It's a fun one.
We should make up a segment where we show each other photos of couples, and you got 15 seconds to give me the lowdown.
That feels like YouTube content, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe what we do is we Google photos of bands.
Or we go to a really bad stock photo website and just type in couple. Or type in or descriptor word and whatever people photos come up.
Couple,
like Shutterstock or whatever.
Yep, for sure. Stock photos, and we say, What kind of music do those people listen to?
Okay, so like Led Zeppelin couple and
Yep.
whatever comes up.
Yep. No. We got to do individual. Like, what is the last concert he went to? What's the last concert she went to?
Dave Matthews Band girl with Megadeth guy.
Yep. I mean,
And
that's a
what
pretty
singer comes
obvious
up?
one. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, this would be a good game.
That's awesome. Was the Conan O'Brien thing cool? I saw clips of that.
You know, in theory,
was
it was
it-
cool.
Okay. Was it? How serious was it? Was it dead serious? Because I know he's a
It-
guitar player and stuff.
So it wasn't. To be fair, it started raining, and it was the only set the whole weekend. You know, this is gonna like be like very, you know, sound like a snob, but it was the only set the whole weekend I watched from like general admission area. You know, I didn't watch like side stage or whatever. Newport tends to have these like really great areas for artists and people with backstage access to watch kind of side stage. They have platforms and they do a good job of making sure the sound on the sides are good, and so it's an enjoyable experience to watch from side stage actually. Because of the just sort of like excitement around that set, those areas were packed. And so it was the only set that I didn't get to watch side stage the whole weekend. And so we went out in the general admission area. It started to rain. It was the only time it rained all weekend. It started to rain during the very last set of the whole weekend, which was Conan. And so we watched like the first, 3 or 4 songs, and then it started to rain. And the first 3 or 4 songs, it was cool, like they did, like a Dickie Betts song to like pay tribute to him, but it was a little more earnest, even though he was making jokes. It was a little more earnest than like I kind of wanted, like, unhinged Hot Ones Conan, right? And he wasn't being that. He was being really like genuine, and he's awesome at that. He's really good at that. But it just was like you could tell he was like, oh, this is not the arena to just be completely unhinged. And so we left. Now Triumph came out, and I knew it was happening, and I forgot. And I probably would have stayed in the rain if I had the sense that Triumph was going to happen earlier in the set. They did a song with Triumph, which was amazing. Robert Smigel was there and all that. Jack White came out and played with him and stuff. But I'm just like not a Jack White guy. I'm not like I respect him, but I'm not like an uber fan in a way that made me want to stand in the rain. So,
right.
So it was
Triumph. Triumph would have made you stay if you had remembered. Is what you're saying.
Genuinely, I probably would have stayed in the rain for Triumph. The thing I would say is that the feedback I heard from a lot of people was, it's cool that he did that. It's cool that it was kind of this like him making almost kind of like a live mixtape of like his journey through Americana and roots and folk music. I think the thing that a lot of people said that I think is a valid criticism is just get somebody who's actually that, as opposed to like this celebrity who kind of, there's a novelty aspect to doing it. And it's kind of like, he wasn't, it's like you weren't seeing him be the best at what he's the best at, and you weren't seeing the best version of the things he was doing. So it's kind of like, what was the point, especially at a festival that is such an institution like Newport Folk, so it was the 65th anniversary. So.
Yeah, I it's still kind of cool. Like, he has a deep love for music, and he's introduced so many like bands and musicians to the world. I feel like he should get to if he wants on stage,
I mean, I think it was cool, and I think that as far as like a fan service thing, like the other thing that's really interesting about Newport is it sells out sight unseen. So nobody knows what's going to be there. So like nobody buys a ticket with the anticipation of who they think is going to do it. Now, obviously, there's people who kind of are there every year. Mavis Staples kind of has become an institution there, where she's just like, part of the furniture. Like she's always around and she's available, and people have her come on stage and whatever. So there are people like that, which is awesome. But he's not one of those people, and so it's kind of like, I think there's a bit of a, like if it were a ticketed event for a Conan thing or whatever, it would have been like maybe received better too. But I think there's an element of the diehards that sort of are like, well, this isn't what we signed up for. We signed up to see something like, but at the same time, I think there are people who are there who are probably really excited about it. And I actually ran into some people. I went to see Liverpool play in Philly.
Well, yeah, we both did. We saw each other there. Yep.
And there were some people when I was leaving the pub going to the stadium that shared the Uber with us that were that had been at the festival, and they were speaking pretty favorably of it. So,
awesome.
So I think people enjoyed it. For me, it was like not the coolest thing I saw all weekend. It just was, a thing I saw. So yeah,
so
that's
you guys think that new Crow movie is going to be any good, or? Looks pretty good.
The sequel wasn't good.
No, I
The
don't think it'll be
OG
that good. It's a
sequel.
way weirder twist on the whole story. Like they could have
Doesn't
kept
look
so
like-
much original and still made it cool, new, but they really changed the whole dynamic of the movie. I guess it's probably the bullshit that it's closer to the comic or whatever, but it
I
had
don't know,
real
man. It
potential
looks
to be good.
weird.
Yeah, it looks
not
weird.
a good weird, but
It feels
all
like
right.
the kind of thing where like they can't help themselves but like make it Hollywood. Whereas the
Yeah.
first one just is weird and dark in the way that like
Yep.
90s movies, like I think about like Johnny Mnemonic. It's like that's a fucking weird and dark movie. They had a lot of influence on other movies to follow. I think The Matrix doesn't exist if it's not for Johnny Mnemonic. Tangent, but
the 90s did really have a lot of really dark movies, both in tone and aesthetic in like a non-horror way. Like the 90s did like dark but non-horror dark.
I mean the Batman
Yeah,
movies. I mean,
really
there's
well.
obviously like
Yeah.
late 80s, but the 90s Batman movies. Dark City is like another one. Like
What was the Cure in a Batman soundtrack too? No, were they not? I thought.
maybe.
Why did I think they were? I don't know. I'm not. I don't want to take the time to look at it. I could be wrong about that. I'm just going to cut this out. But I thought they were for some reason. I don't know. I imagine you've been to the Metro, Sean, right?
I have, yeah. I went to
Yeah.
Burning Fight was a festival I went to
Yeah.
there.
It's a great venue. It's one of my favorite venues for a show. House of
Great
Blue
show,
Chicago is
yeah.
probably my favorite place
Yeah.
to see a show, though.
Yeah.
That or Merriweather, actually. I love Merriweather Post.
I like Merriweather a lot. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
The floor moves at the Metro in Chicago. You can feel the
Floor
bounce
does
of the
move.
floor.
It's like Crystal Ballroom, I think it is in Portland, Oregon. I remember I saw Vampire Weekend there, and it was like all of a sudden the floor, it has like springs built in. It's on the like third floor or something, the ballroom itself. And there's springs in there. Somebody was telling me there's like cork or something in the floor, and it's like built to move.
Yeah.
And
That's crazy.
People started jumping up and down, and I was like, I can feel the floor moving. What is happening?
Yeah.
It's really odd.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. And there's so many people from Chicago. I think Chicago, there's something in the water because you have these people that are just like, you think about somebody like the Kinsellas, but specifically I would say, of the Kinsellas, like Mike Kinsella, who was the drummer of Cap and Jazz when he's like 17. He's in Joan of Arc, and then he goes on and does Owen. And I love Owen. So it's like, but just there's something about that, like, that they're
You
not.
love Owen if you love sitting around being sad all the time. If you just want to spend the rest of your time being depressed about breakups is when you listen to Owen.
Well, I mean
sometimes.
Yeah.
Call it like it is.
I will.
Yeah.
I will tease this real quick. So Sean wanted to do ska, Donnie, and I was like, I feel like at this point, like we got to go as long as we can without doing ska because it's become such a thing. But Sean is a big ska guy too, and
nice.
But Slapstick does not have enough Spotify plays. Like people need to start listening to Slapstick more. Like they have less than 1,000 monthly listeners on here. Like
I was in New Orleans recently, and Brendan Kelly was playing a very drunken acoustic solo set.
He's never played a show where he wasn't drunk.
Which is basically like saying water is wet. But he was like basically just taking requests, and I called out Metalhead in the parking lot, and he was just like, I don't even know what you're talking about."
What?
And I was like, I'm not even gonna. This isn't even worth like the conversation, the like public conversation of it. But yeah, I was sort of hoping that he was, because it was that kind of show where I was like, oh, this dude might actually do this.
I feel like that's his way of saying I don't know how to play that song anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, also, to be fair, he was a singer. He didn't play any instruments in that band, so
yeah, that's true.
Very well could not know how to play that song.
That's true. They're obviously influential because 2 Minutes to Late Night did a cover of one of their songs, which they do you know that? Do you know Guarcinio Hall? Yeah. Do you know that, Donnie? That channel? Mm-hmm. It's like a punk rock / metal like late night. It's like a YouTube show, but it's like a late night show, and the host
kind of like a COVID thing, right?
Yeah, it started as that, but it's still going now. So I think it started as that. But the host is Guarcinio Hall, and he wears corpse paint, and then he'll get these members from bands to do like distance covers, right? So like the guitar player will record the guitar part from wherever they live, and they'll do these like virtual music videos. But they've done some awesome stuff. But they did an Ink and Dagger song. Looks like they call them bedroom covers. But they're really good. But yeah, I mean, I've known about this band. I just never listened to them. So that's cool. Where do they fit, or do they fit? And if they don't, just say they don't fit in this at all. But like, I got really into like some of that Philly like hardcore stuff, like Kid Dynamite and Bane and Painted Black and that stuff. Like, are they part of that lineage at all? 'Cause I see they're from Philly.
So the drummer, Dave Wagenschultz or Schutz or whatever his last name is, that was in Lifetime, was in Kid Dynamite, was the original drummer in Kid Dynamite. I think he was the only drummer in Kid Dynamite, but I could be wrong. That's not true. He was the original drummer, but I think they replaced him. Anyway, I think he was in Painted Black at one point too. He was a drummer in Ink and Dagger at one point.
Okay.
The other connection to Ink and Dagger that people think about, and I actually just thought about this, was Tim and Eric. Eric was in Ink and Dagger at one point. And so, and I think you had a short-lived kind of stint in the band, but, and then like, but they're like, they kind of sit in that, like, you know, they were contemporaries of Lifetime. They were, you know, like I said, the guitar player Don was in Frail, which is like a kind of mid 90s band. So kind of probably contemporaries of Lifetime, but a little bit more kind of on the screamo, emo kind of side of stuff. Very aggressive. You know, they were like kind of, I mean, in that Philly way, they were always sort of like notoriously jokers. So like they have a youth crew band that they did called On Point, which is basically just Ink and Dagger doing youth crew songs. But I think at that point they were all like really into drugs. And so it was them kind of joking the straight edge thing. Yeah, I mean, they just like, Sean the singer was in a band, before called Crud is a Cult, which is like sort of a legend. Like people who are from Philly are like, yeah, Crud was like the thing, you know? And so, and there was a band called Mandela Strike Force, which was like an earlier band that they were all in. So they were in these like underground bands that like Philly heads are fans of, but they weren't. And then, like I said, like they had some kind of crossover. I mean, the original bass player was Ashley, who was in Guilt, who were like on Victory Records at one point and stuff. But
So they were part of that whole, like, they were part of that whole like Philly
yeah, I mean, they were
hardcore thing.
totally. But they were always kind of the like, you know, as the British would say, taking the piss. You know, they were always just sort of like kind of taking everybody else's seriousness and turning it back on them in a way that was like kind of clever. You know, they weren't just like trolls. They were like doing it in a way that was like the whole thing of being vampires was like kind of a way of being like trolls, you know? And I don't know. It's worth, if anything I've said is like intrigued people, they should like go check them out, because I genuinely think they're one of the best bands, and they were phenomenal live, and their music is great. They were really experimental. They were really interesting, and the lore that they created is like, you know, kind of unrivaled.
Say it again for me.
Skavuvi and the Epitones.
What a that's Donnie. That's a ska band name after your heart, right there.
Absolutely.
But they're doing a reunion at Supernova this September. But
Skavuvi and the Epitones. Still more monthly listeners than anything.
Donnie, tell Sean your ska band name, because you won the poll. You won the poll.
So one of them is Danny Tanner and the Wake Up San Franciscos. One of them is Spaghetti and Meatballs.
Spaghetti and Meatballs won, I thought.
Yeah.
So,
and then if you want to go Christian ska, you're going to go Ska-Jesus. And then the album is going to be called Checkerboard Heaven, and the top single is going to be Skankin' on Water. So just depends on which direction you're going to take the band in. But
those are the bands that opened at Rod's Five Iron Frenzy show.
Yeah, that would absolutely fit at that 5 Iron Frenzy show.
Yeah.
So
that was a church basement, I'm sure.
It was a church. I mean, it was for sure a church auditorium. Yep.
Yeah.
How to make a mixtape.